This is the PR Podcast, a show about how public relations helps you tell your story to the world. We talk with great PR practitioners who have the skills, creativity, and just plain savvy to get their clients noticed. Now here's your host, Jody Fisher.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the PR Podcast. I'm Jody Fisher. Thanks for joining us. Well, things are incredibly busy here at the PR Podcast. We're seeing new subscribers come on each and every week. You can find us on all the popular podcast platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, you name it, we're probably there. So a big thank you to everyone who is listening each and every week and who is spreading the word about us. In addition to having fun sharing knowledge and perspectives on the show here, this has also been a great way for me to connect with new people in the public relations and in the news industry. I've met so many new wonderful people through the PR Podcast, and I've invited all of them, and I am inviting you, if you're listening, to come on the show and share your knowledge about what we do. You know, the way I describe it is we do one show a week. It's 52 weeks in a year, so that's 52 guests a year. You should be one of them. So if you haven't been on the PR Podcast, reach out to me through one of our social media channels. Send me a direct message. Tell me what you want to talk about. It's how news gets made, right? So whether you're a reporter, a videographer, a PR person, or maybe even someone else that we haven't talked about, and we love bringing new knowledge in as well. Let us know. We would definitely love to have you on the show. Please also, as we said, check us out on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We're there. We also have that YouTube channel, trying to get some new content on there. Love to hear any suggestions you might have to making that a terrific resource for all of us who are in the public relations and the news business. We have another terrifically special guest this week, so let's get right into it. Briella Tomassetti is a reporter for FOX5 News here in New York. She covers news in the Big Apple on a daily basis. She can usually be found in the 5 p.m. and the 10 p.m. newscasts, as well as online. Who isn't online, right? But she's got a terrific presence. Check her out on social media as well. We'll mention it at the end of the show. She's also a musician, a weather enthusiast. We'll get into that, and a proud Long Islander and much more. Briella, welcome to the PR Podcast.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's our pleasure. And thanks for taking time to join us. We know you are a very busy person. You are all over our TV screens here in the New York area.
I'm still getting used to that myself, and so are my parents. So one step at a time.
I remember when I was a reporter a lot of years ago, and my parents were always tuning into the radio to listen. Oh, he was on again. He was on again. What they didn't understand is, as a radio reporter, you're on once an hour. You're supposed to be on all the time. But I bet exactly. they get a special kick out of seeing you on their TV, huh?
Oh yeah, every night. My mom was like, "Are you on tonight? Are you on tonight? Are you on ? Is usually the text I get. And yeah, Mom, I'll look at the rundown and I'll tell you exactly what time, but I know you're watching. And my dog is usually there on the couch with her. So it becomes like an evening ritual for them. And, she's just proud. So it's exciting to see her excited for me.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Well, you are a reporter working in the #1 media market in the country, really in the world, when you think about it. I mean, a lot of what we think of as news happens here in New York City, whether it's at the local level, whether it's at the national level. What is it like working in the New York City media environment?
It's challenging, but at the same time, I would say it's very gratifying because, like you said, you're covering so many different things at once. And I think at the station that I'm at, it's nice. We get the opportunity to do a lot of different things. I get to do a lot of feature stories. And then I get to do a lot of hard news, and they really do a good job with making sure every reporter gets to tackle, a variety of different things. There's days that I get sent out to Long Island and I'm doing a feel-good story about raising money for the arts. And then the other day I was up in Yonkers live all night covering DMX tributes, which was also really special. So it's rewarding to see myself grow. And actually, I think I just hit my 2-year mark at the station. So I was going back the other day and looking at a couple of the first stories I did, and just listening to my voice and my composure and the way I present myself. I was like, wow, I've really changed a lot over the past 2 years. So it's it's a whirlwind working in New York, but luckily, as you mentioned in the intro, I was born and bred here, and that definitely helps having connections like you and knowing who to call for a story to get the appropriate things on air, because that can be a challenge if you aren't from New York, knowing who to reach out to. And every day I keep learning more people's phone numbers, or I walk into somebody at a Starbucks and I shoot a conversation with them, and give me your social media, why not? And just those little connections, it's like you can't even believe how much down the line they do help.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's really challenging, I've got to imagine, working in this environment as well, working in this market. And there is a lot more to being a TV reporter than just jumping in front of a camera with a microphone in your hand. There's no typical day, I know, in a news person's life. But in terms of what you've got to get done to get a story on the air, could you maybe walk us through a little bit of what goes into that?
Yeah, definitely. So a lot of times I get pitches and people are like, oh yeah, can you pop in at 8 o'clock and, do the story tonight? I'm like, no, I can't get this done in an hour and a half. That has to be sent in early. It's got to make air. And that's okay because people don't understand the process and I kind of have to walk them through it. But a typical day, especially if I come in for a night side shift and I get in the door at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I've got to get a story on the air for 5. So most of the time that's got to be planned out already, or there's got to be some kind of contact to reach out to. That's where you guys come in handy. Or I've got a location set up, an interview set up. And the gears are rolling sometimes before I even get to the studio. I'm making phone calls while I'm still doing my makeup. I'm still doing my hair. For instance, the restaurant industry has been really big throughout the whole pandemic and them trying to come back. So there was one day I got in, they said, you're live at 5 o'clock. You're going to be doing a story at restaurants resuming at, I forget, I think it was 50 or 25% capacity. So the interview had to be set up beforehand. That's where you have the assignment desk, and those people come in handy. They make phone calls. If I know anybody and I get a heads up about what I'm doing before I go into the station, I make additional phone calls. Then we get there, we've got to do the interview, which takes about 15 minutes in itself. We've got to shoot some B-roll. So at that point on the clock, it's now 3 o'clock and I'm on air at 5 o'clock sharp. Then I've got to get back in the car, go through all the footage, write a script, and get that approved. So at this point, you've got an hour left to get everything on air and make it happen. Once the script is approved, then the editors have to go and they have to put the piece together. You have to track your voice, and they have to put lay the video over it, and basically put a bow tie on it and make sure that it gets online when you are in place ready to go. So there's a lot that goes into it. It's not just, hey, can you come do this story on us tonight? There's a lot of planning and patience that goes into it, because sometimes the contacts you reach out to don't come through. Sometimes certain people don't want to be interviewed or on air. So you've got to reach out to multiple parties to make everything come to fruition. So a lot of people too, when I reach out for a story, they say, oh, this is for today. What? How about next week? No, news is always changing. That's what makes it news. It's day of, and that's what makes it timely and what makes it relevant. So I've got to explain that to them as well. Yeah, this is going to be done in a half hour if it can be. And that's the beauty of the industry. I live on my toes and I'm running around, but I wouldn't have it any other way.
That's so great. Yeah, and it's true that so much of what goes into what you do happens, well, I'll say offline or behind the scenes, right? You
Yep.
talked about making the calls and setting things up, and the assignment desk setting things up or sort of teeing things up for you to hand off to you when you start your shift, right? So they've already got an idea of what you're going to be doing, and maybe they've made that phone call or two to sort of set up that interview for you so you can hit the ground running. It really is a team effort. It's not just the reporter and the cameraman out there, would you say?
Oh, absolutely. Definitely a team effort. You've got the desk, you've got the producers, you've got writers that will help. There are a lot of the times when I'm in the field, I am not physically obviously there at the station to see what's going on. So you have a writer that will help me pick out any additional video elements that I need, because I'm not there to look through the files and the catalogs to do that myself. Let's see, we've got the desk, you've got writers, you've got producers, you've got the anchors who are going to toss to you. So I have to ask what they're going to be saying to me if I'm live so that it sounds like a conversation. And usually I hear them in my ear so I can tell what I'm going to say back. But I also don't want to, there's that term burying the lead. And then you don't want to repeat what you're saying. If they just, if they say one thing to you, you say, yeah, that's right. Exactly what you just said. It's got to be a fluid conversation. And everyone says, wow, you look so natural out there. But there are a lot of factors that play into making it look so seamless and so easy. And the people behind the scenes make that happen. It's not just the person on camera or the photographer in the field with you, as you mentioned.
You talked a little bit about working with PR people and getting pitches or getting story ideas. And sometimes they come to you intentionally, wrapped up in a bow, like you said, or sometimes they're kind of accidental and you'll run into somebody or you'll hear or read something, it'll give you an idea. How much of what you're doing on a daily basis are you coming up with, and how much of what you're doing is kind of chasing the news cycle? There are certain stories that have to get covered. And so many days that decision might be made for you. But occasionally I would imagine you're coming in, and maybe this hasn't happened in the last year of COVID, but prior to that, there might be days where, there's not a lot of news going on. Or maybe you have your pick of like 2 or 3 different things. And which one do we want to cover? How much of what you're doing on a daily comes from your own inspiration?
Yeah, I would say it definitely varies. In the past year, it's been a little bit more difficult, but there are so many things you can intertwine into the pandemic because it has affected every industry. So let's just say, I've been playing the piano since I was 7 and singing. So typically I go through my inbox on a daily, a regular basis. I come in, and if I see a pitch about, oh, hey, these artists are doing this outdoor performance, and they will be wrapped up in a bow like that sometimes. And hey, it's going to be happening at this time. You can come here. We've got these these video, these interview opportunities lined up. And I'm like, great, this is something that resonates with me. I think I'll do a great job on it because it will come naturally, because I, am excited about things like that. I can identify with these people and the struggles they're going through. So I will then bring it to my producers, my executive producers, and run the idea by them. And if they give me the green light, then I can set it up on my own, and that will come from my own inspiration. But then again, there are other days that you've got to do just the stories about, hey, this is what the governor is doing about graduation ceremonies. That was a big story last night. And I actually was able to find somebody from my hometown for my colleague to speak to, a mother and her son from the school district where I went to high school. So things like that, connections being from New York, that all was a little bit of my inspiration too. I was like, let me call my my high school, my alma mater, and see if they can get us anybody. So I was able to help somebody else out just by having those small connections. So it does vary, but there are days that there's just going to be hard news. You've got to get it done. And other days are a little bit funner. It really is a big, diverse world of news.
When you do have your choice of stories to pick from, and you are looking for something, what gets your attention? What do you think makes a great TV story?
That's a good question. I would say a really powerful interview, because there are people that are a little less comfortable in front of the camera. And I try, as my job as a reporter, to make them feel more comfortable, like it's a conversation with a friend. It's not a reporter. If we're sitting down, we're on equal platforms. I'm not standing, I'm not looking down at you, or vice versa. Make it seem like it's just us out sitting at a coffee date or a dinner table. That makes the interviewee more comfortable, and that makes them speak a lot more from the heart, because a soundbite that's raw and emotional, depending on what kind of context or story that falls into, that's going to be really compelling for the viewer. And a lot of the times you want to think, what's going to draw the viewer to actually put the volume up on the TV, because the TV is playing in the background while they're doing their dishes. And I'll be like, oh my gosh, I messed up my live shot. Everyone noticed that. And a lot of the times it's just my mom. It's nobody else. But what's going to make the viewer be like, wait a minute, what am I looking at right now? Let me tune into this and see what's going on. So really creative photography, that's where the photographer comes in, but they're not always going to just know what to do. As a reporter, you've got to direct them and say, okay, I'll go back to music. If I'm doing a story about a really talented pianist, I want close-ups of his foot on the pedal. I want the fingers playing the keys. I want to even see a close-up of their face and what that looks like, the emotions on their face while they're in their environment playing. And somebody that's watching TV, maybe they happen to be a musician and they identify with that. And that's what grasps their attention. So a lot of different elements, but it's hard because I get so many emails on a regular basis. And it's things where the opportunities that will be in place at the location I go to, and that catches my eye, that's the pitch that I'm going to follow up on when it's spelled out for me. Here's what we have for you. We have the mother of, a family who was in a car accident and is going to speak about this. And a lot of the times those people don't want to go on camera. They're so distraught. To be able to have that is special, but you also have to respect what's going on in that situation. So again, a lot of different things come into play with what interests me the most about a story.
It sounds a lot like people should really, and this is the kind of PR that I've always practiced, is do your homework about the person you're pitching. Do your homework about the outlet that you're pitching. Make sure that what you're sending to them makes sense for them to cover. There are obvious situations where you wouldn't send a story pitch about one subject matter to an outlet that covers something completely different. But also, you alluded to, something like music there, right? Or sort of what personally interests you, as well as what makes sense on Fox 5. You got to do your homework about where you're going.
Definitely. The way that our station has gone in recent years compared to some of the other local news stations is we do a lot of feature stories. We do hard news when we have to, but reporters get to do a lot of lighter pieces. And it's also doing your homework about what producer takes an interest in what. So I have one producer that really loves Broadway. So I know any Broadway pitches I get, or a pitch I just got about an opera night they do every Wednesday in the city, and they're doing outdoor arias. I'm going to pitch that to the producer who likes Broadway because she's going to be likely to greenlight that pitch. And everyone has a different style. There's a producer that is really involved in hip hop, so he's been really big on all the DMX coverage. And of course, the day that happened, everyone's got to cover it, but some stations do more follow-up stories than other stations. So it depends who in-house likes what, and what station in the market is going towards that hard news feel. We're not, me personally at the station I work at, I'm not going to go chase the fire at every single building fire or every single citizen app notification I get, because that's just not their brand these days. Now that can change down the line, but I kind of get a feel for what the station wants and I go from there.
Are you also thinking about social media, about what's gonna play well on social media? And I don't mean, in terms of like clicks or getting the most views, but sort of what's going to make sense from a storytelling perspective. Does social media play into your decision making?
Yeah, I would say so. You can even just go on Twitter, and that's the great thing about these platforms is you can see what's trending for the day. So I'll even we get a lot of stories from just web articles and print sources that post these really cool stories. Yesterday, I did a story that we had found from whether it was an article on somebody came across on Twitter or social media or just by browsing the web about the post-pandemic beauty boom and how everyone, now that more people are getting vaccinated and that's ramping up, people feel comfortable just leaving and going to the nail salon again. just little things like that. You can make a story out of something that small. And it was all just from scouring the internet and saying, you know what? This is trending right now. Everyone wants to get pampered. Can we do a story on that? Then that's where the PR comes in, and you've got to say, who can connect me with a makeup artist or with an eyebrow girl? And luckily, sometimes I have those contacts in my pocket already. I knew someone who worked in Manhattan, so I called her up and she said, sure. And then for them, that's a little bit of advertising. They can show what they do, and it's a good trade off. But, you know, it's definitely a lot of work when it comes to trying to find out what everybody else is talking about today. That could change tomorrow. It could be something else tomorrow.
Going back to getting your attention in an email pitch from a PR person. The general rule is you've got a subject line and maybe 2 or 3 sentences to get someone's attention, because you're getting so many of them. You're getting a lot of them. Your colleagues in the field are getting a lot of them. Obviously, the assignment desk is getting dozens and dozens every 5 minutes. What about a PR pitch gets your attention, whether it's a full-blown story or whether it's I have an expert or anything like that?
I'm trying to go through my emails right now and see, because a lot of them, honestly, we get so many on a daily basis. I just scroll through, I scroll through, I scroll through. A lot of the times, to be honest, it's something as simple as my name in the subject line. Hey, Briella. I'm like, oh, do I know this person? Have I worked with them in the past? And then I open it and I'm like, oh, yeah, I've done stories with that person. So if it's a reputable contact who I've worked with before, that definitely helps a lot. Again, if there's something in the subject line that interests me, I know that's a little biased, but that definitely goes into it. And then there's a lot of spam I get. So it's hard to scroll through my emails and I'll get all these crazy emails from pharmaceutical companies and then a random pitch sandwiched in between those. And sometimes I miss it. So honestly, it's not always because I'm not interested, but because I miss some of the pitches.
That's
So
a great point. That's
a
a great
phone
point.
call, a
Yeah.
follow-up phone call is good. I really don't get a lot of those. And now that I think about that, that would help a lot. Hey, Briella, I sent you an email. Would you be interested in this? Because I just get so many between my producers, where I'm going today, the spam, and then the random really good pitch that's in the middle that I might miss.
You just blow right by. That is a
Yep.
great point. Yeah. To follow up maybe on a different medium, like a text message or a
And
phone
social
call.
media, going back to that, a tweet or a DM,
Yeah.
because I'm always on those platforms, and I found this saxophone player that was playing at venues, and he messaged me. I haven't gotten to work with him yet, but I added him on Instagram and was following what he was doing. And he said, I used to have a 9 to 5 job and I lost that during the pandemic. And now I'm just trying to make ends meet by going to whatever venues are coming back and playing the saxophone. And because he reached me on, we found each other on Instagram, I am now able to potentially set that up in the future when the weather gets a little bit warmer.
That's great. That's great. Are
Yeah.
you always looking for stories? Even on in your downtime? I mean, it sounds like reporters can come across stories just about any time. Are there ideal times to be sending you pitches or information or connecting with you? Or, do you have like an I'm working, I'm not working time, or reporters kind of always working?
I feel like we're always working. Like, today I'm off, but this is something I enjoy talking about. Of course, I'm going to jump in your podcast because it's always my job. It's a 24/7 gig. So again, if I'm out taking a jog and I stop for a smoothie somewhere and I always listen to conversations, and I shouldn't always be eavesdropping, but when I do, sometimes I hear the right thing and I'm like, oh, this could turn into a story. And I guess that's just the reporter in me. But we're always hungry. And even if I can't do it today or tomorrow, I put it on the calendar for maybe next week. And there are days that I pitch and I don't get an answer from the people at the station, and I've got to follow up and pitch it again. If you're hungry about a certain story or a topic or an idea or something that's passed along to you, you've got to follow up on it just as they would follow up with you, because it slips through the cracks sometimes. There was a great story, for example, a couple of weeks ago about a struggling LGBT bar in Harlem. and they had gone through the ringer with the pandemic. They had gotten, I think, vandalized, robbed, and I got the pitch. And I said, oh, I'm pretty busy this week, but let me put it on the back burner. And it turned out a couple of weeks later, it came together, and there's another reporter who was doing a series of stories ahead of Pride, and that was his beat. I passed it along to him and we made it happen. And it ended up being a really great story, and, gave them a little bit of hopefully advertising to get them back up on their feet. So things happen in all different ways. And if we can't do it day of, we'll get to it if we can.
That's great. That I think gives a lot of hope to a lot of PR people who are pitching endlessly and trying to get their clients coverage. It's not just necessarily the person you're talking to, whether it's a reporter or whoever, but it's also perhaps their colleagues. Is it bad form to say, if this doesn't interest you, could you pass it along to a colleague?
No, not at all, because there are, at least where I work, there are reporters that have their own podcasts, or they have their own little series. One reporter works on a true crime podcast, and he does longer form stories. So if there's a really great story that may interest him, or I know he would maybe do a particularly better job on, then I'm going to give it to him. Also, he may be allotted more time to do it than I would, because that's the beat that he happens to be working on. Rather, I would get a couple of hours to turn a story. He might get a few days to do it. And I know that he'll be able to put more time into it. Another reporter works on stories about different faiths. She just did a story on Ramadan. So if there's something, I got a lot of Passover, Easter pitches. I might pass something religious over to her because that really fascinates her. Same thing with music, might be passed to me. So I don't think it's wrong in any way to say, hey, if there's somebody else that would be interested in this, can you send it their way?
That's great. That's great advice. Well, this has been a great conversation. We are going to transition into the rapid fire question
Oh
section of our
no,
podcast. Are you ready for this?
I'm nervous.
This will be easy for you. This is where we steal a page from inside the actor's studio. So bring out your performer, right? Sit yourself down in that chair opposite James Lipton, if you would. And we ask our guests a series of rapid fire questions, simple 1 or 2 word answers designed to elicit some insight into who you are as a person and maybe a laugh or two. So with your indulgence, here we go. Rapid fire question number 1, your favorite news source.
My favorite news source.
Other than the station you work for.
BuzzFeed.
BuzzFeed, that's a good one. We haven't heard that one yet. All right, rapid fire question number 2, your favorite social media platform.
Instagram, I gotta say it. I'm one of those. I'm a selfie girl.
Rapid fire question number 3, coffee or alcohol?
Both. How about espresso martini?
Oh, nice. Very creative answer. Like that. Like that. All right. Rapid fire question number 4. And this is a good one for all the field reporters like yourself. Your favorite on the run food?
Chipotle.
Very nice.
Something quick and easy to grab and put in the car and bounce out of there.
That's great. Rapid fire question number 5. What do you want to be after you finish this career?
Maybe go back into weather. We'll see. Weather, music, something along the lines. Maybe I could be a singing meteorologist.
There's an original, right?
Right?
That's a good one. That's a good one. Well, Briella, this has been a terrific conversation. I want to thank you so much for spending so much time with us. Please let people know how they can find you online.
Yeah, let me take a look. Let's see. I don't even remember half of my handles on social media. So Instagram is just Briella Tomassetti. Twitter is, let's see. I think it's the same thing. Oh my gosh. Facebook is also Briella Tomassetti. Twitter is at Briella T Reports. And you can find me on Channel 5 at 5 o'clock, 10 o'clock. And sometimes I'm intertwined in Good Day, the morning shows, really all, I work all different hours, crazy schedules. So if you turn on the TV, you might just happen to see me.
All right. We will be tuning in. Well, thank you again for spending so much time with us. We appreciate it. And thank you,
I
everyone,
hope I
for
didn't
listening.
ramble too much.
Nah, it was great. And thank you, everyone, for listening. Please remember to subscribe to the show. Connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at The PR Podcast, and send us a question or a comment. Our intro is by Christopher Appold. You can find him and his fantastic photography on Instagram at Christopher_APPOLDT. Check him out there and hire him for all your photography needs. You can find me online at Jody Fisher on all the socials and online at jodyfisherpr.com. We'll see you next time on the PR Podcast.